Hey everybody, this is Angelo from Renzo Sound, and one of the things I love doing is chit-chatting with other people in the music industry. And today I feel very excited to bring you David Ross from David Ross Musical Instruments, luthier, repair or guitar repairer, and pedal builder. And hello there, David. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. So we're talking on the eve of your launch of the Submersion pedal, which I believe is an octave up to clean blend pedal. Um, and I would love to know more about it.
Yeah,
Um,
I actually have it right here if I can get it in frame. But yeah, it's a clean blendable octave up fuzz that can also be used as a clean boost. So basically, the way that it works is with the volume control on the far left to the midpoint, it works as kind of a standard volume control as you would expect on any other pedal. And then from the midpoint to the far right, it actually works as a 10 dB clean boost. So it has kind of a dual function. And then the surface control, let me see if I can get it without the glare. Surface control, if the control is all the way down, it's just completely clean, kind of like your bypass signal. And then if you adjust it up slightly, it introduces an octave up fuzz kind of underneath your guitar tone. And then as you turn it up, it just becomes a full on octave fuzz effect. So the surface control is kind of similar to the a little similar to the Quan Centaur in functionality, but
nice.
instead of kind of overdrive or distortion as you would get with the Quan, it's octave up fuzz. And so I've definitely found this to be useful. Kind of a more traditional octave fuzz pedal. I've noticed that the gain control has a very limited sweep, and they tend to just be kind of full blast or slightly less than that. And so I really wanted to have a full sweep for the octave fuzz pedal. So yeah, that's the Submersion, and it's actually launching on January 15th, which is 2 days from now. But
Nice.
by the time people hear this, it will already be into it. So
Fantastic. Yeah, I have a little handful of like vintage style octave up fezzes. And besides like I guess the Octavio, it's like the octave up sound can be kind of harsh, and it's great for jamming solos and things like that, and just like really taking off like a rocket ship. But it's an interesting sound to kind of have clean blended in, just like sort of underneath and stuff like that.
yeah, I find that it definitely works with like other pedals. Like if you have like an overdrive, like if you're using a tube screamer, for example, but you want like a little bit more hair on it, so to speak. It can definitely do that. And you, if you place it before or after, like a tube screamer, for example, you can get very different kind of sounds.
Mm.
I find that running it into an overdrive allows for kind of more of an octave effect. Whereas if you run it after, it's kind of more of an overdrive and more of a fuzz sound. So
Mm.
it's definitely very interesting when it comes to that.
Nice. Yeah, I know when I was working on my fuzz pedal, it's once you start working on an effect, you start sort of hearing it in a ton of different music and things like that. And it really sort of starts to color your journey while you're working on something for 6 months or a year or anything. Would you say like are there any like big influences in terms of what you were listening to or tones you wanted to capture, or maybe even something that you listened to sort of in the middle of the process that you're like, I need to add like a little bit of that into there?
It's a good question. I I've kind of been developing this over the course of about 3.5 years, and
Mm,
so I can't really point to any one sound over that time period. But basically, how this came about was just not really being satisfied with what was out there. Like you said, a lot of octave fuzz pedals they can be harsh, especially in the treble range. I've also noticed they can be like very kind of bass heavy and kind of woofy, and I just wanted something to be kind of very well balanced and also kind of usable in different ways than is traditionally the case. and I wanted to make sure that the octave effect was like very much at the forefront as opposed to some other ones where it's kind of like an afterthought where you really have to hold the note for a long time in order to kind of hear it at the tail.
Mm,
So I wouldn't say that there was anything specific, but maybe other than like Jimi Hendrix, who I'm a huge fan of. But
yeah.
yeah, it was kind of just a long, kind of arduous process to make it happen, and I finally have it to where I feel like it's perfect. So
Nice. Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. Now for the fuzz side, I mean, I guess you would call probably the clean side a pretty straight ahead, just clean boost, fairly balanced. Are you doing any like EQ cuts or boosts on that, or just like that side's pretty straight ahead?
that side's just yeah, like you said, straight ahead. It's basically just it's kind of a utility as far as like a as far as just like a boost pedal. Like if you don't happen to have a boost pedal or you don't want to add another one to your board, this can kind of have a dual function. So if you want to just kind of use it as a clean boost, which just raises the level of your entire sound, this can also do it. So I like having pedals where there's you can do more than just one thing with them.
Mm, mm. Nice. And then I was reading on your blog too. I think you have sort of the journey between the start of this pedal to where you are now with the Kickstarter launch and stuff. And I think you ended up settling on sort of a more modern kind of smooth sounding fuzz on the fuzz side
I
versus like
did, yeah. Yeah, like just kind of. I mean, octave fuzz is kind of it's treble dominant in general, but I wanted something to be kind of more full and less kind of thin and kind of very peaky, so to speak. But yeah, having it well balanced was definitely something that was important to me.
nice. And now, tell me about the Kickstarter. I mean, it seems to me like this is your third pedal. I don't know if you released the Winter Storm as a Kickstarter, but I know for certain you did with the Spellbook, sort of one year after another. And uh, I guess, well, with let me gather my thoughts here. What is my
Oh,
question actually?
sure. I should mention that yeah, the Winter Storm actually wasn't part of a Kickstarter.
Hmm,
The Spellbook was, and I felt like the Kickstarter campaign was like very successful last time, and it just kind of went very smoothly. And so I decided to do it again for the Submersion.
nice.
So
Yeah, it seems like, yeah, especially with something as sort of left field and crazy with the spell book. It seems like Kickstarter worked well for that because you can kind of get a lot of enthusiasm and stuff for the pedal, kind of find the people who really dig it.
sure.
And I guess that sort of brings us to your other pedals, the spell book, which is like for a fuzz, it's pretty interesting and pretty wild, I would say. I think you mentioned in one video, the thing that really set you off on that journey was listening to like some analog delays oscillate and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, this right here, if I can get it in frame, it's the Spellbook. Yeah, it was based off the Boss DM2, which is their kind of bucket brigade analog delay pedal. And yeah, I really like the sound of the oscillation, like when it just kind of goes crazy if you turn all of the controls up to full. But the issue with it is it gets extremely loud, and there's really no way to control it. And also, once that kind of happens, you can't really play your guitar through it anymore. Like the oscillation just kind of takes over. And so my idea was basically like I would like to make a guitar pedal where it features that type of oscillation, but it's a little bit more controlled than just the wild oscillation of the DM2, so to speak. But yeah, it was. I didn't exactly know like how I wanted to go about it because like it basically involved like just running a ton of gain into an oscillator and just kind of hoping for the best. And that project actually took me a number of years as well because I had so many issues with it. Just it didn't quite work as I intended, or I'd get noise in certain sections of it that I wasn't looking for. But eventually, like I just kept on hammering it out, and I came up with something that was really, really unique and really different. And the Kickstarter was interesting because, like, I had the notion that either this pedal is going to be wildly successful or it's going to just fall flat on its face. I really wasn't expecting anything besides those two options. And so when it was successful, I was very pleased. But it's definitely like it's a big ask of people to like put their faith in a pedal like this because it's so unusual and so different from what people are uh, normally playing and normally seeing that um, it was definitely fortunate that it worked out for me.
Nice, yeah. Because it's like, yeah, with the oscillation, it's like it's not really a ring mod because the way I hear it, it's like the oscillation ducks out while you're playing, and it's just like this really great sort of like thick fuzz. And so I think that's really unique about it. And um, yeah, I think yeah, the nice thing about fuzz is that it does tend to make sort of a synthesizer sound out of your guitar. Like when I, kick a fuzz on, I'm not thinking like, okay, this is a distorted guitar signal. I'm like thinking more like, okay, this is like the timbre I'm working with, the sustain I'm working with, and stuff like that. So it's definitely like I'm using my guitar as sort of that envelope, that signal generator, and then the fuzz and the shaping afterwards is kind of becomes its own new instrument. And I think with the Spellbook having that sort of oscillation underneath, it's not really a ring modulator, but it's got its own sort of unique vibe that can definitely work in like a lot of drony stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's been interesting seeing how people use it. Some people have been using it just kind of as a standalone synth and just running it through like other synths or other like delays and reverbs and that type of thing. Um, I feel like it's useful. Like it can do the doom metal thing, but it can also be kind of like a tool for ambient type of music where, if you add like a really heavy delay after it, you can just have a note sustain forever, and you can kind of tune the pitch of the oscillator, and it becomes really interesting at that point.
Mm, nice. And I think like, when it comes to, your designing pedals, obviously with the Submersion and with the Spellbook, it's like those are like really creative and inventive ideas. And I think like as designers coming out with like the uh, coming out with the overdrive pedal and sort of like putting your sort of stamp on such a simple sound is really interesting too. Like when you're approaching pedal design and stuff like that, it seems like part of the journey is sort of figuring out what pieces and refining and things like that. But do you feel like you sort of start with a circuit and sort of build forward towards a sound you're searching for, or do you sort of start with like a sound and sort of search that out and try to make that a reality?
Uh, I wouldn't say that I have any kind of set way of making pedals. Like with the Winter Storm, that kind of just came about as really just a culmination of me kind of learning more and more about circuits and just kind of adding to them to eventually where I had something that was kind of like the finish product of that. So like just learning about how to switch between channels, or about different EQ circuits, or hard clipping and soft clipping, and clean boost and stuff like that. Um, so that was kind of a natural progression as far as ideas are concerned. The spell book really came about, like we spoke about, uh, basically just from like a random kind of idea under a unusual set of circumstances, and I just kind of attacked it from there and just kind of went forward. And then the submersion, that was kind of that was a little bit like the winter storm in that I was kind of learning about more circuits, learning about fuzz, and just kind of trying to add to that. And yeah, eventually just kind of perfecting something which had multiple utility and something that was kind of unique as far as octave fuzz pedals are concerned. And then actually there's a guitar pedal that I'm working on currently. It's I don't know if I can get it in frame. There we go. It's actually called the Summer Heat, which is kind of a companion pedal to the Winter Storm. And this actually came about because I bought some guitar pedals on Facebook Marketplace, and both of them were in need of repairs. It was a DoD death metal and a Digitech grunge, and they both needed repairs. And so it basically just came about from like looking up a schematic for each of them and just um, kind of liking part of the circuit and just kind of putting that on a breadboard and then kind of going from there. And so it really kind of depends. I wouldn't say there's really any set way that I go about making guitar pedals. It's some of it is more methodical, whereas others are just kind of a spark of creativity based off an idea. So
Nice, nice. So we should expect a high gain distortion from you, it sounds like.
uh, well, with the Summer Heat, I'm not sure. I currently it has three controls and two switches. So basically, the three controls, um, it's kind of like the same volume control as the Submersion, where it's from the left to the midpoint is volume, standard volume, and then like a 10 dB boost from the midpoint to the far right. And then there's a bass and mid control, but it's basically just two gyrators stacked one after the other. And so it gets like an extremely heavy amount of bass or mid range. But then I'm kind of thinking about like maybe adding like a gain control kind of similar to a Quan Centaur, where the pedal has a little bit more functionality to it than just three controls and a couple of switches to change through frequencies. But um, yeah, I have like one working prototype, and I think I'll eventually breadboard this once I'm done kind of with the Submersion, and I think that will probably be my next release if all things go well, which hopefully they will. So
Nice, nice. And then, yeah, that all sounds great. I hopefully the launch of the Submersion goes well. I think it sounds fantastic. There's a few clips out there of it. Gosh, I might even pick one up myself. And then, yeah, so let me leave you with one quick fire question here.
okay,
What is your most hated guitar finish color?
most hated guitar finish color. That's interesting. Uh, I was okay. I'll say this, and I probably well, all right. I'll say this. I was in Guitar Center, and up on the wall was a Slash Anaconda Burst Les Paul, and it was like $8,000, and the finish is like this green, and I thought it just looked like a hardware store finish, and so I'm gonna go with the Slash Anaconda Les Paul for $8,000, despite the fact that it's probably a $2,000 guitar with a $6,000 markup. So
Nice, nice.
that's my answer for that one.
Perfect. Well, David, I appreciate you chatting with us, and good luck on the Kickstarter again. Again, probably by the time people are seeing clips of this, it'll be launched. And again, thanks so much. Have a great one.
All right, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.